Christians. This comment was so beyond the pale in so many different ways. I could even get all my comments in one post. But here's my second response to this question or this statement. This person says that if God predestined, which he did do, it's not if, he did. The Bible makes it clear. Romans 8:29 and verse 30. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 4 and verse 11. It's there and it's plain as day. God did predestine those to be saved who are saved. So this person proceeds to say that if God did this, which he did do, then it doesn't matter if anyone witnesses to them or not. It does matter because God has commanded us to be witnesses and to take the gospel into the world. Just because he predestined doesn't mean that we are absolved from the responsibility to heed the command to go out and share the gospel to all nations. It is true that God chose his people before the foundation of the world. It is true that their predestination doesn't require the preaching to them. But it is true also that God used preaching to be the means through which his people hear the gospel and are saved thereby. Just because you don't like God's methodology or his process doesn't mean that it doesn't comport with what we are expected to do and abide by. And this is fool's errand for people to assess and judge God and his works in terms of how he brings about salvation to his people. You don't get to say that, well, since God predestined, then that means that we shouldn't have to do and witness, because that makes you smarter than God. Are you wiser than God? Have you thought these things through in a way that God has made some kind of mistake in his measures that he has used to bring about salvation? If the preaching of the gospel is the conduit through which God intends to communicate his blessings through his people to his people that have yet to come to faith, you have a problem with the measures and the methodology and the means that he uses? Do you have a problem with the providential governing in terms of how God brings things about in this life? Who made you God? God chose the foolishness of preaching to save the lost. He even calls it foolishness. But it is the means that God has used to communicate the blessing of salvation to his people and through his people. Just say you don't like it. But a Christian, a true Christian, knows that this is how they were saved. A true Christian knows that God saves this way. Be provoked and be persuaded.